Welcome back, adventurers, once again to Let's Play ChäoS Head. And in the last episode, Takumi and Rimi had both returned to the top of the Kurenai building when Takumi couldn't help but recall the strained phone call from Nanami of all people. His anxiety boiling over, Takumi asked Rimi to accompany him to his parents' house in the hopes of making sure that Nanami was okay. But much to his surprise, Rimi flatly refused, and instead demanded that Takumi not ever visit his parents' house under any circumstances. But before Takumi could question Rimi on her defiant behavior, Sena Aoi appeared and, wielding her sword, attempted to slay Takumi outright. But at the 11th hour, Takumi Nishijou was saved by none other than Rimi Sakihata herself, who has revealed her true colors as a gigalomaniac. Which brings us to five gigalomaniacs. Sena, Kozue, Ayase, Rimi, and Takumi. Senaioi stared at the face of the girl in front of her with astonishment. The sword, shaped like a pair of wings, which had stopped the attack from Sena's D-sword without any difficulty, was clearly a D-sword itself. If she weren't accustomed to handling it, she wouldn't have been able to catch Sena's blow with such excellent timing. There is a lot that Rimi Sakihata has to answer for, and from this moment forward, there is no going back. And yet, having said that, the only thing standing between Sena and Takumi is Rimi herself. But of course, Kozue suspected, but she didn't know outright until now. Indeed. And that meant that Rimi was lying to Takumi the entire time, pretending she didn't know about D-swords or gigalomaniacs or anything. Kozue gazed at Sena and the others from atop the container housing as if she was sightseeing from the sidelines. She sat on the edge, kicking her hanging legs a little in the air. Quite a carefree attitude for having interfered with her surprise attack bare seconds ago, Sena thought, clicking her tongue inwardly. But her eyes didn't slide away from Rimi right in front of her. Rimi, in contrast, had on a brooding expression. Behind Rimi, the pathetically crumpled Takumi Nishijou let out a moan. He was Sena's ultimate target, and she had no intention of fighting with Rimi. Moreover, this wasn't a manga or anime, and it was probably unrealistic to conceive of a battle between D-swords.
その男が何をしたか知っているのか ?IR2 という公式を
The equation scribbled on the back. FUN... forget it. I'm not saying it again. Except that Rimi knows all too well about the equation of IR2, and her expression has changed to a very forlorn one. She cut off Sena's words, a quiet, sorrowful, but distinct answer. Hearing it, Sena gripped her D-sword harder.
それならタクを覚醒させればもっと大変 変なことになる。
Rimi is still trying to protect Shogun by preventing Takumi from obtaining his D-sword, which is surprisingly in stark contrast to Shogun's own wishes, because all this time Shogun has been encouraging Takumi to do the very thing that Rimi fears most, to awaken to his gigalomaniac powers and achieve his true potential.
その前に殺す。
And yet again, Sena, little caring of the fact that Takumi was a grade schooler when he published that little essay.
あなたには
But there is one thing to bear in mind, adventurers, something that I hadn't brought up until now, was because when Shogun first mentioned that formula to Takumi way back when, he also left a very ominous phrase. That equation has destroyed the world's possibilities. But what is IR2's connection to Sena?
無理だよ。
There was no point in talking to her, Sena deemed. She took a stance to protect the distance between them. Rimi, on the other hand, only stood there casually. It would take about 5 large strides to reach the slumped-over Takumi Nishijou, a distance from which she could bring things to an end in 3 seconds. Unfortunately for Sena, killing Takumi will not bring the outcome that she desires, and will indeed possibly lead to a very worse fate. But that matters not to Sena. Sena unhesitatingly lunged straight at Rimi. Aiming for her, Sena swept her D-sword horizontally. Rimi attempted to catch it in the same way as she had before. But unfortunately, Sena has a rather cool trick in mind. A very cunning ploy. Sena's flashing attack was a feint. Her sword passed through Rimi's sword and body. She'd undone the real booting. And to that I say, very well played, Sena Aoi. Now Sena's D-sword was no more than a delusion. But not for long. Unable to touch anything, unable to cut anything, unable to kill anything. But that was exactly what she'd aimed for. Rimi, who had braced herself to receive the attack, reacted too slowly. In the meantime, Sena had already slipped past her side and taken another 2 strides, closing in on Takumi. She reverted to a real booted state in an instant. With this, Takumi's eyes turned towards her, brimming with the hue of terror, and it took little effort for her to finish real booting. When she prepared to gore through Takumi's heart with the sword that had once again become a part of reality,
Sena.
a voice that Sena recognizes. Someone's shadow flitted across the corner of her sight. The instant she heard that voice, she became deeply shaken, missed her mark. And the end of her sword grazed Takumi's feet and embedded itself in the concrete. Sena slowly raised her head, an expression unlike any she has ever had before.
お前
And released a voice akin to a growl. At the edge of the roof, the deepening sunset at his back, A lone man stood there like a ghost. It's you, the homeless man that Kozue had encountered before. He looked sickly and pale, bloodshot eyes and sunken sockets. His head hung down expressionless. The second she spotted him, Sena stopped caring about what became of Takumi, the man she had constantly been chasing, the object of her hatred, the man who had thrown her away and betrayed his family. That man was before her eyes.
ようやく見つけた。
I think I can finally hazard a guess as to who this man's identity is. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the man Sena refers to as Hatano, the one she's been hunting down this whole time. Although, little does Sena realize that Kozue and Hatano have already met once before. And I'm sure Kozue will be surprised to see him here as well. Stepping toward him, Sena grit her teeth to endure her surging hatred. She readied her D-sword again. Another step forward.
どうしようもなかった。私はお前の母さんを生贄に捧げるしかなかったんだ。
黙れ。
母さんの最後、とても安らかなものだった。だからセナ、安心してほしい。
So Hatano has ties to Sena's family.
母さんのおかげで素晴らしい実験結果が出た。お前も母さんの功績を誇っていい。
黙れよ。
When the blood rushed to her head, Sena no longer saw anything but the man's form. But this time her cool exterior has been shattered, and she is lost in a truly berserker state. She ran. In an instant, Sena covered the distance between them in a blink of an eye, sprang at his chest, and stabbed him deep with her D-sword. Seems that Sena's negativity has reached its zenith. It was Sena's dearest wish, not entirely unlike that of Kozue's. She had wandered Shibuya every day solely for the sake of killing this man. She had always dreamed of the day when she would kill him. But who is he to Sena?
母さんの仇を。
She tried to pull out her sword. She tried to move away from him. But it wouldn't come out. The man embraced her as if to enfold her.
よせ、気安く触るな。
All the fine hairs on her body stood on end. If he did such a thing to her now, after so much time, it would only horrify her. Sena had long since severed the family bond that existed once between her and him. That they are bound by blood, which means that Hatano has only one relation to Sena Aoi. Yet she was shocked at herself for how, for some reason, she couldn't push him away. Warmth, a broad chest, the real sensation of her father, her red-stained hands. Hatano Aoi, ladies and gentlemen.
私はこんなの
前が望んだ妄想だ。
望んだ妄想だよ。
We've heard those words before, but not from here, from someone else. Those were the same words uttered by Ayase Kishimoto to Takumi Nishijou that fateful evening. Except this delusion, wished for by Sena Aoi, was not brought about by Takumi's own gigalomaniac powers, but by Rimi's. At that whisper, Sena understood. An error had slipped into a dead spot, a psychological attack, bewitchery. Rimi had read her fantasies. By the time she realized her mistake, it was too late. Losing her balance, she toppled from the edge of the roof together with the man. To Sena, the ground, 8 floors below them, looked terribly distant. And as for Takumi Nishijou himself, yet again his reality has been torn asunder. Yet again. I could only watch it uncomprehendingly. Abruptly dashing to the edge of the roof, Sena lost her balance all on her own, and was at this very moment about to fall off. Her body threatened to disappear over the edge.
落ちる。
All I could do was murmur. I closed my eyes tight. Suicide. Sena plotted to kill herself by jumping off. Yeah. The delusion of Hatano that Sena had observed was hers and hers alone. Courtesy of Rimi. I didn't know why. I wouldn't stand for knowing why. She'd attacked me out of the blue. Now she was receiving heavenly punishment. A poetic if inaccurate way of saying it. She'd been my enemy too. No matter how much time passed, I didn't hear the sound of her crashing below. I tentatively opened my eyes to see what was happening. Sena wasn't falling. She'd slumped down. Rimi stood close beside her. She was gripping Sena's arm. Had Rimi saved her? Maybe, maybe not. But all of Sena's certainty and determination, the drive that led her to try and murder Takumi Nishijou in cold blood, and ultimately her own father, in the same way, has finally broken. Sena flung away her D-sword and wept like a child. What the hell was going on with this sequence of events? I think the only one who can explain this right here and now is Rimi, who still has a lot of explaining to do. To me at least, it only looked as though Sena were single-handedly trying to die. You might not be wrong about that.
辛い思いさせてごめんね。でもしょうがなかったの。
What had Rimi done to her? She was like another person compared to the usual cheery Rimi. A tormented expression, a sorrowful murmur, wavering eyes. A Rimi I didn't know was there. And once again, the The kernel seed of doubt has been planted yet again. The discrepancy between Takumi's memories of being friends with Rimi over at Tsuume Academy are finally starting to have an answer. A very disquieting answer. A voice resounded in my heart. As before, Kozupi watched how we were doing from the top of the container housing.
もう終了だよね。もしもセナさんのことぐしゃばきってしようとしてるならカズピ許さないもん。
Kozupi is just as broken as Sena is. A fact that hasn't been lost on me. But unlike Sena, Rimi has no intention of murdering anyone. Not today.
崎畑さんのこと
She only did what she did to protect Takumi Nishijou from Sena's wrath.
バラバラにしちゃうよ。
My back went ice cold. Kozupi had the same airheaded anime-style voice as always, but she meant what she said. Going up against Sena was one thing, but Kozue or Ihara is a different matter.
もう終わり。
But as I said before, there will be no blood shed this day.
もともと葵さんのことどうこうするつもりはないし、タクの前から消えてくれるならこのまま解放する。それは無理。
Kozue disagrees, and I think Sena would do the same.
だってコズピーとセナちゃんとタクミちゃんはお友達だもん。
But for different reasons, apparently.
ね、そうでしょタクミさん。
Takumi might agree, but Sena certainly will not. Although at this point in time, Takumi has absolutely no clue in the hell of ideas who his friends are right now. I couldn't think about anything. If someone had told me everything happening now was a dream, I'd undoubtedly believe them. Then you would be a fool. Why had Sena suddenly attacked me in the first place? Had she been my enemy all along? Not exactly.
お前のせいだ。
Sena, who had been sobbing, raised her face. She didn't attempt to wipe her tears. She was still collapsed on the ground. She stared at me harshly.
お前のせいで私の家族は。
I floundered. She battered me with raw emotion. What are you claiming I've done? What are the ties that bind Takumi Nishijou to Sena Aoi? I don't cause trouble for anyone, and I certainly didn't know a thing about Sena's family. I'm very much a harmless human being. If only we could hold on to that.
無害だと。
She'd read my mind.
お前が生み出したものが世界を滅ぼすかもしれないっていうのに。
Destroy the world. Another self-centered fantasy? I glanced at Rimi, seeking her help. But she stood with her back facing us, looking vaguely out at the darkening sky.
無駄だよ。
Her figure, her voice. Was it my imagination they seemed horribly lonely? You were not imagining things.
タクは何も知らないから。
When Rimi said it that way, It almost seemed as if she knew anything and everything. Almost doesn't cut it, Takumi. Rimi knows exactly what's going on.
ふざけるな。今渋谷を襲っている混乱は全部あの公式が発端なんだぞ。
Again, Shogun's cryptic warning, the equation that destroyed the world's possibilities. Although it is far-fetched that such a formula could spring from the mind of a grade school student, that is exactly what happened. Equation.
それ以上言わないで。タクは本当に何も知らないの。
He doesn't know anything yet, but against your most fervent wishes, Rimi Sakihata, that is about to change. It sounded like they were talking about me, but I myself couldn't keep up with their conversation. And as for Kozue,
公式ってこれのこと？
Kozupi descended from the container housing, holding my essay. That which was drawn there, the scribble I had written in elementary school. IR2. It was the origin of the chaos now besieging Shibuya. Talk about a false accusation. Of course a doodle like this couldn't possess such power. I had truly been in a light-hearted frame of mind when I drew this doodle. I must have been. Because it happened so long ago I couldn't remember too well, but it bore no particular meaning. I'd only copied the numbers that appeared in a dream of mine. A dream related to the Whose Eyes Are Those Eyes essay written on the front. I'd used those words since the distant past, and at some point they attained more and more of a shape in my dreams. So Takumi didn't originate this himself. Someone, somewhere, gave this to him. Therein lay the numbers.
FUN の10乗かける INT の40乗イコール IR2
If you went to the power of 10 times INT to the power of 40 equals IR2. Sena had wiped her eyes at last, leaving them bright red. Even so, she remained crumpled, head lowered in apparent frustration as she wove her words.
この公式をお前が生み出した瞬間世界は分岐したんだ
Branched apart. Could that equation be so ominous as to create something akin to a world line shift? But of course, we're back here.
ノア2に搭載されている中で最も秀でているのは中核システムに組み込まれたとある方程式です。
We are back here at the heart of the Nozomi group with that notorious mastermind, Ganeshi Narose. And that is where we're going to end this episode of Let's Play ChäoS Head, ladies and gentlemen. And when we return, the conspiracy only grows more elaborate and more deeper. As always, adventurers, until next we meet.